What's up guys? Welcome back to the channel and Happy New Year. If you're just joining us, welcome. It's awesome to have you because we're kicking this year off with a pretty rad two-part tutorial series. We're going to be creating a cinema booking app, but learning how to create components, build prototypes and animate your designs. Let's check out the preview and then we'll get stuck straight into the tutorial. What's up guys? So we're now in Figma and we're going to take a look at what we're creating today. So what we're going to be creating is the main cinema homepage screen, which consists of the filters, the main featured card area, and then the now showing area at the bottom. Within our Figma area we have an assets library, so these are just movie covers that we've pulled off Google. And we also have a little components area. Usually we would set up a design system separately, following atomic design principles. But for this tutorial, we'll be building all the components in the same artboard area. And in future tutorials, we'll be taking a more in-depth look at how we create design systems. So we're going to get started by just going to our prototype screen. This screen has been set up to contain a gradient. So our gradient is using a linear fill with the top using a hex of 020624 and the bottom using 0D, 0D, 0D. We also have a grid applied to this, so if you hit Ctrl G, you can take a look at the grids. And the grid we've got set up is using a count of 6, type center, width 48 and gutter of 14. The first thing we're going to do is start looking at how we've created these filter pills. So what we're going to do is hit F on our keyboard to create a frame. Just build a frame within this grid area. I'm going to call it filter. Within the frame we're going to apply a fill of our yellow, which is going to be our selected state. And if I detach this, you'll see that we're using EE F789 for our fill. Within our filter, we will apply our type. So we're going to use DM Sans bold, 16 pixels and 24 line height. And let's just type lorem in here to get us going. We can center that. And we're going to apply an emoji. So hit Control Command G. Let's apply a ninja emoji. This will be kind of our action pill. Let's apply an emoji here. And then for this filter, we're going to hit Auto Layout. And this is going to create our Auto Layout features. Within this panel, we can control our horizontal padding, our vertical padding. We're going to want a horizontal padding of 16 and a vertical padding of 8. We're going to want to round the corners to 8 pixels too. And that's looking pretty good. We can then create our inactive state, so when a filter hasn't been selected. And all we're going to change here is the fill to using this sort of grey. And this grey is using a fill of 282B30. We're then going to change our type to using regular and our fill to using white. And this white is using a fill of FFFFF. So that's cool. So those are our filter pills already really made, but we want to componentize them. So let's Command X to cut and bring it down to our component area. And what we're going to do is name these, well, first of all, create these both as components. So hit right click, create component on both of these elements. And then let's combine these as variants. So great, now we have a filter variant. We're going to want to name our first pill to be our active state. So we can type in state equals active. Copy and paste this and just name our inactive state as such. We're off to a good start. That's pretty much creating the component here. So what I can do is copy this active state and now paste it into my prototype. Let's do this about 24 pixels from the top using that 8-point pixel grid rule. And within our kind of asset area over here, or our panel, we can flick between active and inactive states, and these will automatically update. The reason for creating these components is that if I want to change anything within the component area, this is directly going to update within the area up here, and I'll show an example of that in a second. But for now, let's duplicate this filter, set it to inactive, and start building out this filter container. So I'm going to name this action. Let's name this adventure. Adventure. If I could spell, that would be great. We can update the emoji by going Control Command Space, and let's get a sword on there for the adventure. And let's make sure these are 8 pixels apart, and then place these into an auto layout by hitting that plus button over here, and we can name this frame filters. And what we've done here is applied a space between each of these filters of 8 pixels, which means as we duplicate, that's going to automatically happen. We can now name this filter comedy, update the emoji to a laughing face, and duplicate this again to get the full filter panel across the top here. So great, we've created the filter section. Just to go back to what I was saying, you know, if I now decided, oh, these actually need to be 48 pixels, this is directly updating within here. Obviously that doesn't work, but essentially means that if I had hundreds of screens using these filter pills, it would easily automatically update across every single screen. I'm just going to hit Ctrl Z to get rid of that because we're happy with what we're using. And we're going to start looking at creating this featured card area. So again, I'm going to hit F to create a frame, and I'm going to turn my grids on using Ctrl G. I'm not actually going to follow the grid for this. I'm going to create a frame of 296 width and 438 height. I'm then going to apply a fill into this frame. Actually, I'm going to hit fill. I'm going to click on the fill and change this to an image because we're going to be applying the image assets within it here. Then I'm going to round the corners off to 24 pixels. And this is looking great, using 47 pixels each way. Cool. So we've created the main featured card. And I'm actually going to turn this into a component straight away. So let's again hit Command X to cut, bring it down to our component area, and turn this into a component. And we're just going to leave this here for now. We're going to call it main card. We're then going to want to create these side cards that the user is going to flick through. And I'm going to use the grid for this. I'm going to again hit F to create a frame. Use 4 columns, so 234, and let's just make the height 334. We're going to apply a fill, turn the solid into an image, and again round those corners to 24 pixels. I'm going to hit Command X and bring this down into the component layer, and then turn this into a component. And at this point, because these are what we're going to call featured cards, I want to actually combine these into a variant called featured cards. So I'm going to name the component featured card. I'm going to give this a type. So the type of featured card is active, because this is the main card. And the type of this smaller card that's set to the left and right is going to be inactive. Let's now take this inactive card. Actually, let's take the feature card and place it into our main screen. Position this, we're going to want to go 48 pixels above the filters and 47 pixels each side. I think at this point we actually want to make this card 48 pixels each side. So let's take a look at that. Let's reduce the main component down to a width of 294, and this should be automatically updating right here. So perfect, we're using 48 pixels each side as we are on the top. I'm going to jump into my assets now just to see what this looks like. So hit Option Command C to copy this image, and Option Command V to paste. And this is an issue I thought we may face. Because we are now pasting the image, we're losing our rounded corners, although our main component is using 24 pixel rounded corners. So let's actually remove this fill and apply a rectangle within, filling out the whole size of the card, which again was 296 pixels width and 438 pixels height. And let's place that within that active component. So here we go, we can see that this is now filling out. Let's make sure it fits in correctly. We reduced it down to 294 on the width. And then let's name this image. And we're going to do the same to the inactive card. Let's get rid of the fill in here, create a rectangle with inside, and fill this out. So 234 width, 334 height, and apply an image asset to both of these fills. Let's do this quickly. We're going to name our rectangle image, and we're also going to update this to an image. You know, and this just shows as we're creating these components, we may not get it right first time. I wanted to kind of play around a little, but now this should be on the right forward motion with what we're creating. So let's actually just go into here and reset the changes we've done. You can see it's updated to have an image in the main card. And let's try this copy and paste again. So Option Command C, we'll click into the image layer and Option Command V. And now you can see we're actually keeping those rounded corners. We're then going to grab our inactive card and place this 32 pixels each side of the main card. Let's duplicate and drag another one across. Make sure it's within our main screen. This is looking good so far. Let's apply images to these. So Option Command C for the grey man cover. Let's apply an image to that. And let's grab the Lost City for the other one. That's great, it's retaining the rounded corners. And then we want to get this kind of curve motion within there. So I'm going to apply a rotation of -4 to the card on the right and 4 to the card on the left. And I also want these cards to have a slight opacity, as you can see within the reference. So again, we can just dive into our component layer and make sure that the inactive card is using an opacity of 50%, which directly updates into our main screen. It's perfect, we're already like halfway there. The next thing we can do is create the now showing area. So for this we're using, let's first of all turn our grid on, see where we're at. We're using a type of sign. Let's do 24 pixels. Let's do an auto line height for this and type in now showing. That's looking great. We'll add our emoji, targeting, I guess, a younger market within this cinema app with all the emojis. Let's place it to our grid, which is using 16 pixels against the left hand side, and I think 64 pixels from the top works. The last thing we want to create is these smaller cards, and we're going to base this off the grid. So if we hit frame again and call this small card, just for the purpose of the tutorial, using a width of 110, which is 2 columns, and let's use a height of, let's see, maybe about 160 for this. And we're going to want to apply our rectangle within here, 110 and 160. Again, the same we did with the other cards. Call this image and round the main card off, the main frame property off with 8 pixels corner radius. Let's make the fill an image. Cut this and let's put this into our component layer. And because this is a different section, we could put it into our, make all these cards as components, but I like to separate. So we can just create this as an individual component. Let's call this now showing card, just to really relate to exactly what it is. Copy this card and paste it into our screen. Do 24 pixels from the title of now showing and duplicate these 3 across the grid. And again, we'll just go into our assets. Let's take Top Gun, apply it into this image. Tenet, again, Option Command C, Option Command V to paste. And Batman is the last one. What a movie that was. All of these are pretty good movies. Tenet, I'm still trying to figure out what was going on there. So now we've done it. We've gone through this pretty quick, guys. But it just goes to show how quickly you can build out a screen when you kind of have an idea of what you're trying to create. So this is the final screen in terms of design and layout. And now we're going to take a look at how we can animate this. So what we want to do is duplicate the first screen and call this screen 2. And the type of motion we want to have is the main card animating over to the right hand side and the left hand card of the grey man animating into the feature card. And we're going to be using what we call Smart Animate to do this. The first thing I'm going to want to do is, I know that this Lost City card is going to move away. So let's move this to the right, holding Shift and your right key. Let's do this about 12 times. We're then going to take our feature card and make this inactive. We're going to place it and align it with our previous card. Let's just actually make sure. Let's use a rectangle to make sure we know where this should be placed, where our feature card is. Make this inactive. Bring this down and off to the right. And we'll be able to base how far this is away from the grey man card, because we're going to bring this across, take off the rotation, turn this into active. So now we can easily just select active and our component will update. And we know that we want this to be 64 pixels from the now showing area. We know that we want the main card to be 32 pixels away from this main card. So let's do that, 32 pixels. And we know that the main card should be 48 pixels from the left-hand side. Perfect. So what we're looking at the minute is getting this animation from the Thor main card into the grey man card becoming the main. And we can apply a -4 rotation here. What we need to do now is have another card appear into view, because this is going to be a kind of carousel that continuously moves around between, maybe let's say a set of 8 cards. So let's bring in another inactive card and place this into view. I'm going to align it to the main card and then bring in another cover. So let's use the day shift here. Apply this into the feature card. Move this card off to the left, 32 pixels away from the grey man, and apply a 4 angle rotation. Fantastic. The next thing we want to do is, we know that this card has come into view, but we don't have it featured in our first screen. So we're going to want to copy and paste this into our first screen. And like we did with the Lost City, notching it off to the right, we're going to notch this off to the left, because this will be coming into view out of frame. So again, I think we did about 12 clicks to the left. So hold shift, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And it's now living off frame. So we have these cards that are going to come into view. And this is the setup. The final thing we really need to do for this is create the animation. So what we want to do is select the main feature card, hit prototype, and say when we are dragging on drag this card, we want to smart animate this as a gentle animation. And we want to do the same if we're rotating the other way from the grey man. So on drag, we want to smart animate gentle at 800 milliseconds. This little icon that's come up over here is our prototype mode. So we can call this cinema prototype. And then we can go in and actually play this. And let's take a look at what we've created. So whilst it loads, I'm just going to take a little sip of water. Hopefully it's all going to work out. So if you remember, we're saying as we drag this card, all the other cards are going to animate into view. So as I drag Thor, this card is animating in. Our card that was off to the left-hand side of the frame is also animating into view. And as we drag the other way from the grey man, all the other cards are animating into view too. So this is looking great. I think there's just one more little detail we could add into this. I kind of had an idea that as this animates, we can take elements from the movie covers, especially the colors. So right now, this original screen is kind of using these deep dark blue tones that you can see in the Thor cover. But the grey man has these nice dark red tones. So if we go into our gradient layer, what we can do is update the top blue layer hex and pull some of the dark from here. And this is a little bit too vibrant for, I think, the effect we want. So let's bring this down to about here, which I think is catching those light dark red tones. And now the gradient should be automatically using this smart update to animate between the color gradients. So again, let's click play, or we can hit prototype within the panel. You can use play to do your prototypes, or you can do it directly from the tag within here. And let's take a look at how that's working with Smart Animate. So as we drag, the gradient in the background should be updating to provide these deep dark red tones of the grey man as it comes into view. And there you have it. This gives it a really nice subtle effect that as the user is dragging and animating and viewing different covers, it just enhances, I think, the overall effect. So amazing. We've created this drag element. We have our main featured area. We've created components. We've built out an animation. And I think this is looking really great. This is a good start to the tutorial series, I feel. There's so much more to learn. And so much more for me to learn in terms of how I can provide an in-depth tutorial. But the next tutorial series, part 2, is going to focus on when we actually hit play or view more about this main featured Thor card and how a user can then go through and start to book seats at the cinema and how that will animate in. So I hope you guys enjoyed the tutorial. I hope you found it insightful. From a personal level, I think we're just going to keep getting better in terms of how we can teach, and a like and subscribe is going to motivate us to do that. So watch out for part 2. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next week.